This video will explain how we are going to do labs for online human anatomy. Similar to lecture, you'll have 2 lab topics a week. And for the most part, they're going to line up with lecture. So here, week 1, the lecture topics are the language of anatomy in the cell. The lab topics are the language of anatomy in the cell. When we get to the appendicular and axial skeleton and muscles, it gets off a little bit because the lectures are only 1 class long and the labs are 2 classes long. But we'll get back on schedule and get to the brain and the nervous system. Similar to lecture, I will have the lab topics in the header. So lecture 1, lab 1, language of anatomy, Monday and Tuesday. That means the lab topic is going to be assigned Monday. Most of the things will be due Tuesday. Now, some of the things will be due later on. Like I'll give you a couple extra days if it's something big. And there's a big project you'll do when you get to the muscles, which will take you several days. So obviously that will not be due instantly. But generally, there will be an assignment that is due the following day. So if we scroll down here, same pattern. Lab 1.0, language of anatomy, assigned Monday and Tuesday, August 24th. Everything is due on Tuesday. However, the study guide's not due. Similar to lecture, the study guide is for you. I am not going to collect it. So when you go to it, you're going to go to a page, language of anatomy. This is your introduction page. I'll have some sort of blurb up here, and then I'll break it into parts. If the parts are short and manageable, I might do them in a table format like this, or I might do them in a tabular format like this. And it has to do with how much there is of something and when I actually wrote the lab. So the tabs are actually later labs than the table. So you will have instructions, both oral and written. Now, a lot of times I'm going to direct you to another website to do something, but watch my instructions first. Now, some of these instructions I'll go over models. I will explain things to you. It'll be a video talking about landmarks or structures. So make sure you watch it, and similar to lecture, you click on it, it makes it bigger. You click here, it makes it even larger. Now, the first thing we're going to do on labs is use models. The first lab, we're using models, and it'll direct you to this web page for a lot of the models. There are 3 tabs, and they usually direct you to a specific part of the web page. Here are the lab activities. Here's the models. Here's rotatable models. So if I click on the lab activity, lab 1, this is what it's going to send you to. So there'll be subdirections. So we have models you could rotate here. Ta-da! And this is so you could actually view things in 3 dimensions. So you actually get an understanding of what things look like. Then I'll have some sort of web activity for you for a lot of the models. Now, these activities, some of them are just identifying things. So on the first day, we're going to go over all 5 zillion of these regions. And you need to try to identify them after I go over them yourself. First, I'm going to have you look at the models that you could rotate, then the static models. But on the static models, if you put the mouse over, it tells you the answer. So the idea behind these activities are that you are trying to identify things yourself, then it gives you the answer. Most of mine will have word banks. Some of them I'm going to send you to an outside website that they've already done all of this, so they will not have word banks on them. Other times I'll just come up with some sort of web activity. So this one, which we're going to do, the first lab also, I have a picture, and in class we'd actually put sticky notes on the models. Uh-oh, they're all messed up. So you'll have to drag and drop where they belong. And unfortunately with this, my HTML coding sucks. I can only do 1 set of variables at a time without causing the site to blow up. So you actually have to check your answer yourself on these activities. I'll have something that says, check your answers here. So I'll give you your answers. Also on this page, I'll have just the models with answers so you could go and study on your own on these pages. And I'll have the rotatable models. So like here, we have the rotatable models, and some of them I'll actually do a video tour of to explain the landmarks on the models. Others I'll have text here explaining what you should be looking for. Now on these rotatable models, you'll notice they have hotkeys up here. That will actually take you to a labeled picture of the models. And in theory, as it rotates, you'll see those dots appear. And the program I used to make this is very temperamental. This one looks like it has about half of them, so I'm missing the black plus. If I scroll down, I believe the elbow is good and actually put them all on. So it depends on what mood it is feeling. I'm very happy earlier today I actually was making some of these and it behaved perfectly, which means the next set will not behave. So on all these rotatable models, you could just move it to actually see what the model looks like. And you can also enlarge it to full screen size. So you cannot see this whole picture because it is off full screen on my screen, but I'm not showing you my full screen. Sometimes in the lab, I'll have you do some sort of art project. So again, I have instructions on doing the art project. You click on it, it maximizes the window, and it tells you what to do. Then you might have a discussion. So here is a discussion for directional terms. And usually at the very bottom, I'll have an upload. Sometimes I'll have you upload different subparts. So I'll say upload, upload, upload for different things. So here's a different one. So here it says upload here. So you'll do part 1, upload it all together. You'll do part 2, you'll upload all of part 2 together. And again, the discussion is going to be linked to the lab. So a lot of times you'll have discussions. Here's another one of those matching activities. Yes, I know how to do exactly 3 things on HTML programming, and I will completely overuse it. Now, sometimes we'll actually go to an outside website that the school is paying, I think, $70 per person, so you have access to. And we're going to use that in place of using a cadaver. So I cannot show you on this computer, but basically I will have instructions. I'll send you where to go, and I'll actually show you what the program looks like. So it'll take you to this page. I'll have instructions for you. And what's nice is you can manipulate things. And let's not talk over myself. So it'll take you, it'll let you move it around. It'll tell you about the muscles or what we're looking at. So you'll have to do pinning. So there's a feature on this program where not only is it going to tell you about it, but you can say, okay, I want to put a label on that. So we're going to be doing that a lot instead of using a cadaver. And that brings me to the lab book. I will put the lab book up for free for you. And it has a table of contents. This is a PDF, so you could just click on the chapters as you do. I'll also have you do some activities from your lab book. Now, this is really boring for me because you have all the same answers, and I'll have 90 students, and it's like the same answers over and over again. But I do check it. And I'll try to break it up so you're not doing every single exercise, which a face-to-face class would do. Some of them you're going to do other things online instead. But we're going to be using the lab book for most labs, and you'll actually use some of the activities as follow-ups for lecture. Now, the lab book has a lot of text. I actually started writing this at my other school, where the school was making students buy a $200 textbook they couldn't afford and a $150 lab book they couldn't afford. I'm like, I'm just giving them my own book, so at least they have something that has everything written down. So it might help if you read these. You have so much other work that I don't know how much more time this will take to read it all, but we'll have activities in it. And I will say, do page 3, answer what the different compartments are. Now, the easiest way to do this is you insert a text box, or you insert text, and you type the answer. And it didn't like my answer because you just type in the answer. That is one way you could do it. So I went up, that's a text box, that's just text. You could print it out. I had some students printing it out last year. I had some students that actually had editing software for PDFs, so you're welcome to do that. But usually you won't print out several pages at once. So like here, I'm having you skip this because you're going to be doing this as an online activity, but you would do temporal. if you actually wanted to add text. Then you could screen capture and save it. You can save sections of a PDF file. There's all sorts of choices. Now, one of the reasons why I actually wrote my own lab book was so you'd have color pictures of all the histology. So all the histology is in here. I actually tell my students to make flashcards out of the histology. And I'll actually draw and label the histology either based on these pictures or other pictures I have. So some of the histology you'll be actually drawing here. Now you don't have to draw it in these boxes. I'll say, you are going to draw some histology for me. Well, you could actually draw that on a different piece of paper yourself. You don't have to use a fancy app to draw it in. You can just draw it on paper and upload that instead. Now, like I said, some of the lab book activities you'll actually do in lecture. So I know for this lecture, I'm going to lecture on these types of cells and then have you just do this matching instead. Now, the last type of activity we're going to do is histology. For most of the images for histology, I'll provide you links to them. So if I click on this, it takes you to an outside website that actually talks a lot about it. And I'll give you instructions on how to deal with that website in my little instruction videos. And sometimes you'll draw them. Sometimes I'll have you actually make a screen capture. So for this first one, what you would do is we're going to look at simple cuboidal. So we're going to zoom in on the simple cuboidal. On a Macintosh, it is Shift-Command-3. On a PC, it is the FN key and print screen. So you'll take a screenshot and it'll tell you what to label. I suggest if you're doing it on your at-home computer, just put the picture into Word, label it on Word. If you're using your phone, you could actually do the screenshot on your phone, open Edit, and there's actually editing tools that you can label pictures. So histology will be a part of our labs, and I'll have instructions for you when we get there. Lastly, you will have 12 lab quizzes. I'll drop below too. And lab quizzes are going to consist on identifying things. I'll spoil the question already. What is the structure? Repeated 5 billion times. I'll talk about how the tests go in the testing section, but I do drop the low to lab quests. So this is to give you an idea of what we'll be doing in lab. Thank you. Have a good day.